What is up everyone, Void Reaper here, and today I'm bringing you my deck profile on my Ghotis. Hope you enjoy, let's get straight into it. So first up for the monsters, we have Triple Paces, Light of the Ghoti. You can banish this card from the field to special summon a fish from your hand, which you would typically combo with the next one up being the double of Enoch. Enoch lets you special summon a level 4 or lower banished fish. So let's go into the 8 really quickly as he is a level 6. Next up, one of Schiff. Schiff is great as a one of, you don't need it anymore. Not much more to say on that one. Next up is Zep, Ruby of the Ghoti. Zep is an incredibly good card because you can special summon it when it's banished during your opponent's turn, and then lets you quick sync like most of the other Ghoti tuners. Other than that, you don't really need to run it any more than 2. Next up is Synopsis, Shade of the Ghoti. You could run it at 3 if you want to see it more, but typically it's a 2 of, as is searchable off of the field spell. Other than that, not much more to say. It's a great card. When summoned, you can banish a card when it next leaves the field, so it's any face-up card, so you can target your own Ghoti monsters. So if your opponent Kaiju's Ghoti of the Deep Beyond, after you've targeted it with Synopsis, it will be banished instead, so you can bring your Ghoti of the Deep Beyond back. Next up we have Zeep, Omen of the Ghoti. Zeep is also an incredibly good Ghoti as it lets you recycle your banished traps. It also is a great level 4 as when a fish is banished, you can special summon it from your hand, so great extender overall. That's it for the Ghoti monsters. Wish we had more, but we don't. Next up is Double Beautiful Princess. Great opening hand, great normal summon. If it gets ashed, then what a shame, I guess. Next up, Double Lifeless Leafish. Lifeless is only ever used to send Shiv and make Stealth Kragen. But other than that, he could be a draw if you don't banish him off of one of your other fish effects. Other than that, it's just typically to send Shiv. Next up is Abyss Shark to go for number 4. Abyss Shark is, again, it's an additional searcher. You can search off of it using Serpent of the Ghoti, and it's a free extra water body in the graveyard that you can use. Next up is Silent Angler, 2 of. You could cut Silent Angler. It isn't extremely needed for this deck. In this particular way I play the deck, I need it so I can have a better chance of going into Stealth Kragen and my Synchro 6s. But the restriction to stop you summoning from hand is normally incredibly hindering to the deck. Next up is 3 DD Crow and then 3 D Shifter. DD Crow because it's DD Crow, it's great against the tier decks, and then D Shifter because, well, it's D Shifter, I don't really need to say much else on that. That is it for the monsters. Next up, for the spells, I run 2 Moray of Avarice. I have looked into Moray of Greed, but for this particular way the deck is played and how Ghotis all work off of banishing, I would have said Moray of Avarice is better because it's a banish 4 cost. So you can banish, say you've got Paces on the field, you can banish the Paces, draw 2 cards. If your opponent ashes it, your Paces is coming back next turn anyway. Next up, I do run a very small runic package, being simply Dispelling as it is Interruption, and then runic Freezing Curses, because again, it is the interruption out of the runic spells. I typically side them out. They're not always handy, but they're good to have, plus they banish as well, so additional fuel for the fire. And then of course the mandatory 3 of The Most Distant Deepest Depths. Best card the Ghoti have. It searches if it protects itself if you have a fish synchro. And you can put it back into your hand by simply special summoning a fish synchro when it's in the grave, which is absolutely amazing. Great recyclability. You could probably cut it down to 2 even. You don't really even need to run it at 3. I run it at 3 because I want to see it in my opening hand as much as possible. But you could easily cut it down to 2 and run something like Terraforming to search it, or even like the deck doesn't need depths, it's an additional searcher, but other than that, it's just a great card overall. That is it for the spells. Up next is the traps, of course. I run double Ghoti Chain. Ghoti Chain is a good one because you can banish a fish. Again, it's a banish for cost. Great cards for the deck that banish for cost. It lets you then special summon a Ghoti from anywhere else. So if you want to special summon back your banished Enoch you banished earlier, you use Ghoti Chain, banish one of your other fish, special summon the Enoch out. You pretty much got it. And it is banished when it leaves the field as well, so you can bring back your Enoch, bring back another level 2, synchro summon. The Enoch is banished again for you to then use again later, or even special summon a different fish off of Enoch. Up next, double Ice Dragon's Prison. I think I need to say much on this. It's Ice Dragon's Prison. It's a great card. It's a great clearer against all sorts of different boards. And of course, it's additional banishing, which again, Ghoti of the Deep Beyond gains 500 for each banished monster. So, since Ice Dragon's Prison can only banish monsters, it's just an extra 1,000 guaranteed off of Ice Dragon's Prison. And then last for the traps, Draco Utopian Aura. This card has advantages and disadvantages. I wouldn't have said that you need this in a Ghoti deck. You can easily run something like Imperm or something like that, as it is a better card. But I've gone with Draco Utopian Aura as it is a counter trap, so typically only a counter trap can respond to it. You can banish a monster from your hand to take control of the monster you destroy. The one drawback I would have said is it can only negate a monster's effect on the field. It can't negate any hand traps or anything like that. It can't negate the grave effects. It can only negate monster field effects. So it's not great, but it's come in clutch quite a few tournament games. And that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, I of course run Stealth Kraken and 2 spawns. I run Abyss Shark, so you might as well run a number monster to go into it with. Other than that, you could probably run, I think it's White Aura Monoceros, I think you can go into, which is the 7. But I much prefer the Stealth Kraken play, as I do side deck Goes Unmatch for the additional Floodgate. I run the 1 Nightmare Phoenix. It's Nightmare Phoenix. That's all I'm going to say. Up next, double Serpent of the Ghoti. I'm not going to try and say the first name. Serpent is a brilliant card. Lets you banish level 6 directly from deck when it's synchro summoned, and then you can, when it's used to synchro material and sent to the graveyard, you can then banish, target a fish in grave, banish it, and search for another fish that's a level equal to or lower than. I typically go Serpent banish itself, because he's now used up. He's no longer as useful to me to begin with. So I banish him, and I can search any level 6 or lower fish from the deck. So I can search things like my Abyss Shark to get into my Lifeless, to go into number 4, and send Shiv as well. So overall, it's an amazing support for the deck. Up next, double Ascan. Ascan is one of my favourite fish. I wish it wasn't a common, but Ascan is definitely one of my favourite fish. When he is synchro summoned, you can target one fish you control and one card your opponent controls, banish both, and then when he is banished, you can banish a fish from your graveyard to special summon it. Brilliant effects. Sadly, they are both hard once per turn. I think Ascan would definitely be a lot more overpowered if this card is special summoned banish, but that would make it incredibly overpowered, I would have said. But other than that, one of my favourite fish to go into during my opponent's turn and just immediately take away their first combo piece. It's great. I absolutely love it. Up next, the 1 of Dragite. Draghat is just a nice negate. Since everything in the deck is water in the main deck, you just have Draghat as the additional spell trap negate. Occasionally make it turn 1, but not often. Up next is Double Geoglim, I believe. Spear of Ghoti. He's good for non-targeting removal. Besides that, you typically use him just as an additional banished body during your opponent's standby phase, because his effect reads, during the standby phase, you can banish this card. During your opponent's standby phase, you can banish this card, special summon the monsters that were used as material from the graveyard. So you wouldn't want to banish the materials that you used to make him, but you can use him during standby phase, bring them back, and since the all Ghoti monsters can special summon, when they are special summoned, can synchro summon again, you just use him to just go into another 8 and Ascan on your opponent's turn, say. But other than that, at the start of the damage step, he can banish the battling monster. So I've used this to clear Avamax, I've used this to clear Rainbow Neos, but that was a weird game. Other than that, he's not too bad. Wouldn't have said it should have been a secret, but hey ho. Up next, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon. Never have I ever made this. Never once have I made Borreload Savage Dragon. It's the main reason I run him is because I run Nightmare Phoenix, but like, you do not need to run the Savage Dragon. You can run something better in place of Savage Dragon. If you guys want, I'll update you when I actually make Savage Dragon in a game, but typically just don't make it. Up next, Cheng Ying. Everyone knows what Cheng Ying does. If you've seen a single Sword Soul game, you know what this guy does, and you know why it's mandatory to be running it in this deck. And then up next, I do run 2 Ghoti of the Deep Beyond. If my opponent somehow sends it to the grave, you cannot summon him back. So I much prefer being able to banish him off of my... Because what Ghoti of the Deep Beyond reads, when he is banished from the main monster zone. So you can't summon him back if you've banished him from the grave, if he's been banished from the extra deck, can't summon him back from there. Even if you have summoned him properly, you cannot summon him back unless he has been banished from the main monster zone. But other than that, and of course, everyone knows that he is a board wipe, so... But yeah, that is my Ghoti tech profile, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I will see you guys in the next one.